Hi, everybody. It's November 6, 2017. I don't know if any of you came across headlines like this in January of this year. Bill Gates says there's something worse than nuclear war, and we're not ready for it. Isn't this a despicable excuse of a human being? Bill Gates, a psychopathic, satanic, crazy, evil nut job who has unleashed vaccines all over the world, but particularly in India, and has murdered, well, I'll say 40,000, but I'm sure the number is higher. 40,000 children. A disgusting, reprehensible, repulsive human being. But he has, in January 2017, stated that nuclear war, while all of our world leaders are focusing on that, there is a greater threat, a genetically engineered virus, bioterrorism. This is what he stated. The next epidemic has a good chance of originating on a computer screen. That's odd phrasing. I will get back to this phrasing of Bill Gates, originating on a computer screen. It could kill tens of millions of people. California fires. A couple of weeks ago, I was doing some research and I went to this Global Forest Watch Fires map, which is linked to NASA and NOAA, or one of them. And all of the red dots here are fires going on all over the world. And I noticed Madagascar was engulfed. The entire island of Madagascar is on flame, is in flames. I could not see the island itself, as you cannot see it. I didn't do that video because suddenly the map went blank. All of the red dots disappeared. And literally for about 10 days, I couldn't get it operating. So I went back to it today. Yeah, it's operating. Okay, so Madagascar clearly is still engulfed in flames. All right, I don't give much credence to these maps. But I did some research on Madagascar and realized, oh, we have national security interests there. Well, we have national security interests all over the globe, and we are taking over countries and islands. And we know that our U.S. military does depopulate islands for their own uses. They build these military installations on these islands, and I thought, well, for sure, Madagascar, that's what's happening. So when I then soon saw these headlines, unusually severe plague strikes Madagascar. Wow. All right, my default is that whenever we have these weather events, I can't not think that it was man-made. We've got the technology to create, to modify, to manipulate, to intensify, or to stop weather events from taking place. When we have these diseases like Ebola a couple of years ago, well, all you have to do is just do a little bit of research and you will learn that that Ebola that broke out in Africa, unleashed by our U.S. military, Fort Detrick. Detrick is our U.S. biological weapons lab. They were associated with the unleashing of Ebola. So whether it was the United States or perhaps Russia or could be China unleashing this bioterrorism, unleashing diseases and viruses, bacteria that pretty much has been dormant for a long time. Suddenly we've got these massive outbreaks. Now, my research today showed that 133 people have died already from the plague in Madagascar, approximately 2,000 sick. But scroll down and I come across this little video clip.
Now, including new concerns this morning about the plague in Arizona. Here with our Medical Monday roundup is Dr. board-certified doctor and the medical director of MedStar Prompt Care. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Shana.
Let's get to this first one. Apparently, fleas in Arizona have tested positive for the plague. I will say, people hear the plague and they panic.
Well, this is the same plague as the Black Death from the Middle Ages. The bacteria has always been around. Fleas are the reservoir in rodents, just the way it was back then. We have antibiotics now, which they didn't, so that's one good thing. But it's been in prairie dogs, it's been in rabbits. So if you have a pet out there, keep it on a leash. Make sure your pet gets tick and flea medication to kill any fleas.
Is there any risk, let's say your pet gets it, and then with you, obviously around your pet all the time?
Right, yeah, so there is a risk that you have to get to your veterinarian right away. There are antibiotics. We have a whole host of antibiotics that now work for it that they didn't have in the Middle Ages.
That's a big one.
Oh, they didn't have those antibiotics in the Middle Ages, and yet we have been told that the antibiotic era is dead. It's over. We're now in the post-antibiotic era. We have superbugs now. Many of those superbugs have been created. The use of Monsanto's Roundup, the herbicide, creating a lot of superbugs. So that doctor who is on mainstream media saying, oh, don't worry, we've got antibiotics. We know that mainstream media is the propaganda arm of our government, and they do come out with these stories, and it's kind of like predictive programming or to desensitize the public, get them used to something that may be unleashed. So when I see these clips, this was back in February. This was right before, was it February? No, I'm sorry. This is November 3rd. Okay, so this is a recent mainstream media report. So we have this put in an NBC News article, the plague in Madagascar. Now we've got the plague in Arizona. Don't be surprised if we suddenly have an outbreak of the plague here in our country, and they will claim, oh, these ludicrous reasons for it. Climate change. Climate change is bringing back all of these viruses that killed millions and millions during the Middle Ages, and Jesus. And you know what? Yes, it is true that the majority of the American people are so dumbed down that they'll just believe anything that they hear. But this originating on a computer screen. I've read several articles regarding what Bill Gates said back in January 2017, and all of them say originating on a computer screen. What does that mean? How does a virus or a bacteria, or how is it that bioterrorism could originate on a computer screen? A genetically engineered virus originating on a computer screen. All right. I want to read a paragraph from this article. It's a PDF, Barry Trower. If you don't know who Barry Trower is, click on the link below and read that he is an expert in microwave frequency warfare working for the British government. But I want to bring your attention to this. Now, when Barry Trower says he said, he is talking about a scientist. He said it is now possible to genetically change bacterium and virus, genetically change them. You don't need more than 2 brain cells to work out where you go from here. Virus are neither dead nor alive. They inhabit hosts. If I put a virus inside of a dormant bacteria that I know I can spring to life, and I go to Norway on a holiday, or Denmark or Sweden, I just spread the virus around in the forest with the dormant bacteria, and I come back And I can wait if I like 100 years, 200 years, or 2 hours. It makes no difference to me. And then all I have to do with HARP or a similar device is to put the frequency off the ionosphere down into Norway, wherever I feel like it. The virus will spring to life because their host has sprung to life. This is where we are. So countries can now, just by introducing bacterium and viruses and what have you, they can totally devastate the economic possibilities of another country. And I have written it. I've written it in my papers. I've said it on the air, on the radio. In fact, I was on international radio. It went out to 95 countries 2 Sundays ago. And I said that scientists at the end of the war were hanged for what scientists today are doing and getting away with. Absolutely. Um, it obviously is casual writing. Okay. They can spring to life viruses with the use of frequencies. They don't need HARP. They need some similar device. They don't need to shoot a frequency into the atmosphere and then steer it down. They can do it that way, but they can also just use microwave frequencies to bring to life a dormant virus. So when you think about all of the aerosol spraying, our food supply taken over, how poisonous our water is, can you doubt for a second that we would not be also using those sources, food, water, and the aerosol spraying air, as a means to deliver these dormant viruses and bacterium? I thought this interesting. Homeland Security Newswire. This is also an article on Bill Gates saying that terrorists could kill 30 million people within a year using bioweapons. He is Mr. Vaccine, right? Gates also argued that reducing the time taken to create vaccines, along with surveillance and cooperation, are vital steps to preventing a pandemic, and that failure to prepare could cost hundreds of billions of dollars to recover. Interesting that he doesn't say it could cost the lives because they don't care about human beings. They do not care. Clearly, this man has murdered 40,000 children in India alone. The vaccines that they tested in African countries have killed so many children and innocent people. So you just have to do the research to learn that what I am saying is absolutely true. When you read originating on a computer screen, frequencies come off our screens, our computer screens, our TV screens, our iPads, our screens on the telephone. But these iPhones and iPads and cell phones are emitting frequencies. So if we have breathed in or eaten or drank these dormant viruses, they're inside us now, and they can then shoot off a frequency coming out of the computer screen and bring to life that dormant virus within us. Yes, that's where we are today. And when you just read some of these articles, which there are so many of them, genetically engineered bioweapons, a new breed of weapons for modern warfare, when you realize how many biological warfare programs there are all over the world, not just the United States, but even Wikipedia, the list of US biological weapons, the topics, the organizations, the agencies, military, and government agencies, and schools, and biological weapons programs and their locations. And it's not just the US, it's Russia, it's China, it's many governments that have all of these viruses and bacteria. They do the testing, and they do testing on their innocent citizens. Fort Detrick, associated with the Ebola outbreak in Africa. And when you read some of these articles, biological weapons are designed to spread disease among people, plants, and animals through the introduction of toxins and microorganisms such as viruses and bacteria. The method through which a biological weapon is deployed depends on the agent itself, its preparation, its durability, and the route of infection. Attackers may disperse these agents through aerosols or food and water supplies. This is a very interesting article. Does questioning the government's role in Lyme disease make you a conspiracy theorist? James H. Oliver is a well-known expert in ticks and their pathogens. He is a professor of biology emeritus at Georgia Southern University and a fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. In the 1950s, he served in the Army at Fort Detrick, Maryland, a top secret biological warfare facility where he studied ticks and the diseases they carry. So, I will link below to everything, and if you want to read the excerpts of this interview that James Oliver gave regarding ticks, Lyme disease, and a Golden Gloves champion. He opened up about ticks and Army experiments during the 1950s. The article itself you have to pay for, but in this article there are some excerpts of what this man said. And he was talking about how these military experiments that he was involved in, it was how to figure out how to get ticks to reproduce quickly and abundantly, as well as how to distribute ticks to targeted areas. I'll just read the bold emphasis of what James Oliver said during this interview. If you want to bring a nation like Russia to their knees, destroy their agriculture. I am a biologist, so that's where I started working on ticks and mosquitoes, how to produce a lot of them and drop them out of airplanes. We would run all kinds of distribution tests on where these things go, when you release them, and what were the factors that would cause the migration. Can we drop them out of airplanes? And how do we get the bugs to the enemy? That was the thing we did in the 50s. And if you've done any kind of research on Lyme disease, you will know that there is an island off of Connecticut. That island, Plum Island, the Animal Disease Center, which is the Plum Island Animal Disease Center of New York. It's a United States federal research facility dedicated to the study of animal diseases. It is part of the Department of Homeland Security Directorate for Science and Technology, and since 1954, the center has had the goal of protecting America's livestock from animal diseases. This is the island where they created Lyme disease, brought it to the mainland of the United States, hence the reason why Lyme originated in Connecticut. Now it's an epidemic, and unfortunately, Lyme disease, which the Center of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention admitted that Lyme disease is a bioterrorism agent. And that was stated on mainstream media. For the first time, a US government body admits that Lyme disease is a biological warfare agent. This is the reason that hundreds of thousands of men, women, children around the world have been left to rot with wrong diagnoses or have had their Lyme disease acknowledged but been told that it is an easily treated disease, give them 3 weeks of antibiotics, and then told to shove off when their symptoms actually carry on. And Britain, the existence of the epidemic is denied completely. Is that true? This article was in 2006. So my UK subscribers, let me know. Have they denied the existence of Lyme disease in Britain? No effort made to warn or educate the public about the dangers of the tick? Well, they unleashed it in Britain as well. I will let you listen to just a few minutes of this testimony by a doctor, a congressional testimony or congressional hearing on Lyme disease, and listen to what Dr. Birascano has to say about Lyme disease.
Many problems in the field of Lyme disease, and I want to address one of the core problems that you may not be aware of. Some have called this the Lyme disease conspiracy. There's in this country a core group of university-based Lyme disease researchers and physicians whose opinions carry a great deal of weight. Unfortunately, many of them act unscientifically and unethically. They exert strong, ethically questionable influence on medical journals, which enables them to publish and to promote articles that are badly flawed. They work with government agencies to bias consensus meetings and have worked to exclude from these meetings and scientific seminars those with alternate opinions. They behave this way for reasons of personal or professional gain and are involved in obvious conflicts of interest. Some of them are known to have received large consulting fees from insurance companies to advise the companies to curtail coverage or any additional therapy beyond their empiric 30-day course. This group promotes the idea that Lyme is a simple, rare illness that is easy to avoid, difficult to acquire, simple to diagnose, and easily treated and cured with 30 days or less of antibiotics. The truth, however, is that Lyme is the fastest growing illness in this country after AIDS, infectious illness after AIDS, with a cost to society measured in billions of dollars. It can be acquired by anyone who goes outdoors, very often goes undiagnosed for months, years, or even forever in some patients, and can render the patient chronically ill and even totally disabled, despite what this core group of physicians refers to as, quotes, adequate therapy. Long-term studies on patients who were undertreated or untreated demonstrated the occurrence of severe illness more than a decade later, reminiscent of the findings of the notorious Tuskegee study. Following the lead of this group of physicians, a few state health departments have now begun to investigate in a very threatening way physicians who have more liberal views on Lyme disease diagnosis and treatment than they do. And indeed, I have to confess that today I feel that I am taking a personal risk, a large one, because I'm stating these views publicly for fear that I may suffer some repercussions, despite the fact that many hundreds of physicians and many thousands of patients all over the world agree with what I'm saying here today.
So,
working with it when it
this is a very good video. I hope that you listen to the full video and then circulate it. But why don't we just listen to a few minutes of what our fabulous US government has done to us, to Americans. And boy, we still have Americans who actually believe that their government is going to protect them, that our government would never do the things that it actually has done.
February 1956. In the heart of New York, Operation Big City was underway. A Ford Mercury, specially adapted with a hidden exhaust pipe, pumped out bacteria onto the streets of Manhattan. Undercover agents entered the city's subway system, their cases equipped with tiny motors, which covertly dispersed the bacteria Bacillus globuli. 10 years later, the Army returned. Light bulbs filled with bacteria were dropped in front of trains and down ventilation shafts to test how far the bacteria would spread through the subway system. For years, these public experiments were kept secret from the citizens of New York. The Army faithfully filmed its own experiments. This Washington, D.C. bus station was the site of another secret test. 30 similar trials were conducted at public locations all across America. One of the earliest experiments had fatal consequences. In 1951, the Army sprayed the bacteria Serratia marcescens over San Francisco. 11 hospital patients developed a mysterious infection, and within days, Edward Nevin died from an illness caused by the same bacteria. In 1953, CIA employee Frank Olson leaped through his bedroom window on the 10th floor of this New York hotel. 9 days earlier, a fellow CIA scientist had secretly spiked his drink with LSD. It took the
Okay.
government
I'm sure that most of you know that our U.S. government, U.S. military, has been experimenting on all of us. We have been their lab rat, their guinea pig. And now, when we look up at that sky and we see the dumping of chemicals and heavy metals, just those alone can make us very, very sick. It breaks down our immune system. It weakens our immune system. The dumping of aluminum particulates, nano-sized, cross the blood-brain barrier. It is one of the reasons why we see an exponential increase in dementia. And the list is long. So they no longer have to keep anything secret. It's right smack in our face. And frankly, the condition of the majority of the American people, they could come out and announce that we are going to depopulate our country for the benefit of the earth. We've got to do this for climate change. So we plan on killing 300 million of you. And I think most Americans will just be sitting there listening to their mainstream media reporter tell them this, and they would do nothing about it. They would probably just kind of look and think, oh, wow, what a shame. Oh, well. Let me check my email. Let me check my Twitter account. Let me see if I got any messages from anybody on the internet. What's on TV tonight, Mildred? And how did we get here? How did we get so completely dumbed down and apathetic and so demoralized that we can't even act in our own best interest? And we've kind of lost the survival instinct. How did we get here? Perhaps they have been spraying or putting into our food supply or water system drugs that have made us this way. I don't know. But because the majority of the American people are this way, and I think all of you would agree with me, those of you who have tried to, have conversations with those in your life and you get nowhere, well, all of this is just going to continue. And do not be surprised if suddenly there is an outbreak of plague and suddenly we see an awful lot of people dying from it. So I just wanted to prepare you for what may be coming. If you didn't know, I think most of you know, what can you do? The best defense against any kind of disease is a very strong immune system. Exercise, diet, detoxing, essential. That is, if you want to stay alive. There's an awful lot of people who are very tired now, having to live a nightmare created by people like this guy. All links are below.